I sold your concert tickets to pay for rent. Taylor Swift can wait, my brother said, after selling the $2,400 tickets I bought for my daughter's 16th birthday. Mom, he has bills, he added. You have a job. I contacted Ticketmaster to ask for a refund. When the ticket wouldn't scan at the gate, I realized something terrible. Hey, Reddit, I didn't know how fragile happiness could be until I saw it fade from my daughter's face in real time. There was no dramatic scene, no yelling or tears at first, just a quiet pause, the kind that tells you something inside a child is broken, even if they can't articulate it yet. That's when I understood this birthday would stay with her forever. My daughter had been eagerly counting down to her 16th birthday for nearly a year. Not for gifts or attention, but for those tickets to the Taylor Swift concert. Music had always been her escape. When she was anxious, she put on her headphones. When school felt overwhelming, she wrote lyrics in the margins of her notebooks. When she was hurt, she played the same songs repeatedly until they felt like they understood her better than anyone else. So when the tour was announced, she barely dared to hope. One night, standing in my doorway, she said quietly, I know it's expensive, so it's okay if we don't go. That's when I decided we would go. I saved for months, picked up extra shifts, stopped buying coffee and skipped new clothes. I even sold a piece of jewelry I'd kept since my 20s. Every time I transferred a little money into my savings account, I pictured her singing at the top of her lungs, eyes sparkling, finally feeling free from the weight of the world. When I finally clicked purchase, my hands trembled. $2,400 for 2 tickets. Worth it. I printed them out and placed them in a lavender envelope, the color she loves. I wrote "For the bravest girl I know" on the front and hid the envelope in my desk drawer, trusting my family to believe I was hiding it from time, not from them. That was my mistake. The birthday party was at my parents' house, as always. They insisted it was tradition. My mom said family birthdays belong there. I baked cupcakes the night before, and my daughter helped frost them, laughing when we got icing on our noses. She kept glancing at the clock as if time itself was moving too slowly. On her birthday morning, she hugged me tighter than usual. Thank you for everything, she whispered. I kissed the top of her head, already feeling emotional. By the time we arrived that evening, the house was packed. Balloons were taped unevenly to the walls. Relatives scattered across the couches and chairs. The smell of cake, coffee and too many people talking filled the air. My daughter sat beside me on the couch, knees bouncing, hands folded in her lap, smoothing the dress she had chosen weeks before. Is it time yet? She whispered. Soon, I said, smiling. Then my brother walked in, and something tightened in my chest. He had that familiar energy, loud, careless, and confident, like someone who never faces consequences. He dropped into the armchair across from us, legs spread, phone in hand. Hey, he said casually. Just wanted to say thanks. I frowned. For what? He looked directly at me and smiled. For helping me make rent. The room fell silent. I laughed once, uncertain. I didn't. Then he said it. I sold your concert tickets. The words didn't register at first, like hearing a sentence in a language I didn't understand. I owe what? I asked. He shrugged. Relax. Rent was due. Taylor Swift can wait. My daughter slowly raised her head. What tickets? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. My heart sank. My mom sighed, already annoyed. He has bills, she said. You have a job, my brother added. And honestly, 16 isn't even that big of a birthday. I felt heat rush to my face. You went into my desk? I asked. He smirked. You weren't home. That's when I noticed my daughter's hands shaking. Not dramatically, just enough. Mom, she said quietly, you said we were going. I knelt in front of her, forcing my voice to stay steady. We were, I said. My brother laughed. Drama. She'll survive. Something snapped inside me. Not loudly, not explosively, just final. I didn't scream or throw anything. I stood up and took out my phone. What are you doing? My mom asked sharply. Fixing this? I said. I stepped outside into the cold night air, hands trembling as I dialed Ticketmaster. The woman on the phone was calm and professional. Yes, ma'am. I see the tickets. They were transferred and sold. I want to request a refund, I said. There was a pause. Have the tickets been scanned? No, then you're eligible. When I walked back inside, my brother was joking with my dad. And she's always been dramatic. I refunded them, I said. His smile vanished. What? The tickets, I repeated. I refunded them. My mom stood up. You can't do that. I just did. My brother's face turned pale. You're kidding. No, my daughter stared at me, confused. So, we're not going? She asked. I swallowed. It means something else, I said quietly. The rest of the night was a blur. My brother stormed out. My mom cried. My dad called me selfish. No one asked how my daughter felt. She went to bed without a word. I sat beside her, watching her stare at the wall. I'm sorry, I whispered. She turned to me slowly. Did I do something wrong? That question broke me. No, I said, my voice trembling. You did everything right. The next morning, my phone blew up with messages from my brother, my parents, and relatives who'd already heard their version of the story. Then one notification appeared: ticket scanned. Entry denied. That's when I realized this wasn't over. The notification stayed on my phone long after the screen dimmed. Ticket scanned. Entry denied. I didn't need to read it twice, I already knew what it meant. Somewhere across town, my brother was standing at a gate, confidence fading into panic. He was realizing for the first time that money taken without permission doesn't magically become his. Behind him, a line of excited people shuffled forward, unaware that one small act of entitlement had just collapsed under its own weight. And here I was, standing in my kitchen, barefoot, staring at the morning light spilling across the floor, feeling something unfamiliar, not guilt, but relief. My phone rang. I didn't answer. It rang again and again. My brother, my mother, my father. I let it ring until the silence returned because, for once, I wanted my nerves to settle before theirs. When I finally picked up, it was my brother. He didn't shout right away, that came later. "What did you do?" he asked, voice tight, breath shallow. "I undid what you stole," I said evenly. "You ruined everything," he snapped. I leaned against the counter, eyes closed. "No, I stopped letting you ruin me." He tried to reason with me. "You know I was desperate." I opened my eyes. "And you knew those tickets weren't yours." Silence followed, not denial, just the absence of excuses. Anger filled the gap. "You think you're better than me," he spat. That stung deeply, but this time, I didn't bleed. "I think my daughter deserves to feel safe," I replied. "That's not superiority, that's parenting." My mother came over later that afternoon without calling first. She never did when she planned to lecture. She walked in, sat at the kitchen table, and sighed dramatically as if exhaustion excused her from accountability. "You embarrassed the family," she said. I poured myself a glass of water, hence steady. "You embarrassed a child," I corrected. She waved her hand dismissively. "That's dramatic." I looked at her. "So was stealing from her birthday." She pressed her lips together. "You could have handled this quietly." I nodded slowly. "You mean silently?" Her eyes flickered. "You always twist words." "No," I said softly. "I finally hear them." That evening, my daughter sat beside me on the couch. She didn't reach for her phone or ask about the concert. She stared at her hands. "Mom," she said, voice barely above a whisper, "did Uncle really sell my tickets?" "Yes," I replied. "He did." She swallowed. "Did Grandma know?" I hesitated but didn't lie. "Yes." She nodded slowly. No tears, just an early understanding settling into her 16-year-old heart. "That hurts," she said simply. And in that moment, I realized something devastating. The worst damage wasn't the stolen tickets, it was the loss of trust. Days passed, then weeks. The messages changed tone. My brother stopped yelling and started bargaining. My parents stopped accusing and began checking in. "You could help him just this once," my mom said one afternoon. I stared out the window. "I've helped him every time," I replied. "This is the first time I haven't." "That's not fair," she said. I smiled sadly. "It just feels that way because you're used to me fixing everything." A week later, my brother showed up at my door without swagger or jokes, just desperation. "You really won't help me?" he asked. I stood firm. "No." He looked at me as if he didn't recognize me. "You've changed." I nodded. Yes, I finally did. What shocked me wasn't his anger but his confusion. He genuinely believed my resources were communal, available to him by default because of blood alone. That belief didn't come from nowhere, it was taught. My parents didn't talk to me for a while after that. The silence hurt, but it didn't hollow me out like it used to because, for the first time, I wasn't abandoning myself to earn their approval. 2 months later, my daughter came home from school smiling. "Mom," she said, holding up a flyer. "There's a small concert downtown. They're not famous, but I really like them." I smiled back. "Let's go." When we stood there together, singing and laughing, surrounded by strangers who didn't know our history, I realized something profound. She didn't need Taylor Swift. She needed to know she mattered more than someone else's convenience. Eventually, my mom reached out again, not with an apology, but with honesty. "I didn't realize how much pressure you were under," she admitted. I nodded. "That's because you never had to." Our relationship didn't magically heal. My brother never truly apologized. My parents never fully admitted fault, but something shifted anyway. They stopped assuming my yes. They stopped volunteering my resources, and I stopped explaining myself. The real change happened quietly inside me. I no longer flinched when my phone rang. I no longer felt responsible for everyone else's emergencies. And I no longer questioned whether protecting my child made me difficult. That's all for today. Thank you for listening. Remember, your peace and your child's safety always come first.